In today's video, I want to talk about my recent decision to shave my head and sport the bald look. So I also want to talk about reasons why we lose our hair, what we can do to keep it, like things that we can eat and other habits, and then also answer some questions that people had about it, like what does my girlfriend Crystal think about it, if I feel more confident now, and why does it seem like more people now are losing their hair earlier than ever before. So before I start, I just want to say that if you're a guy out there and your hair is thinning or your hairline is not what you want it to be and you're thinking about shaving your head, I want you to stay tuned until the very end because I'm going to give you some advice that was given to me that really helped me in my decision. So one really interesting question that I got from somebody was, Derek, why do you feel like more men are balding than ever before? I know this is too soon, so don't worry, it's not too soon. I don't mind talking about this kind of stuff. And I think it's an interesting question worth answering. And I did have to get a little sciencey, looked at some different papers and articles and stuff to kind of figure this out. But I think it's worth talking about because I've kind of noticed it as well. So before I share my experience, I'm just going to get into this a little bit, but then I'll talk about my experience shaving my head and why I really did it. As we get older, losing our hair is not an uncommon thing for men or for women. So by the time men hit 30 years old, 25 to 30% will experience some hair loss. And then by the time Caucasian men hit 50 years old, over 1/2 of them are going to experience hair loss. But are those numbers increasing? Just like that person asked, it does kind of seem like more people are losing their hair these days. So I think part of it is our perception. I think that as we get older, others around us get older as well, and we start to notice that people are losing their hair. Another is that I think shaving your head has become more acceptable in the past few decades than it has in the past. We see celebrities doing it now, and in past generations, it has meant that you're some type of outcast or you belong to some undesirable group of people. But it's really not like that anymore. In the past, many people just held on to whatever hair they had. So if their hairline was going back, they just kind of dealt with it. If they started to get that like ring of hair, like the Dr. Phil hairstyle, they just kind of dealt with that. A lot of men used to wear toupees when they had that, so that kind of like covered it up. But nowadays, people just tend to shave it off. So I did do some research on if hair loss is increasing. And you know what? It actually appears that it is. So I wasn't able to find any articles or studies on North America specifically, where I live and where I'm from. But I did find some testimonials from like doctors and hair loss specialists that said that they do feel like it is happening more often to young people. But I was able to find some studies out of China that actually show that younger generations are losing their hair more quickly now than in past generations. And this is especially interesting and significant because East Asians are the least likely group of people to lose their hair at younger ages than any other group. This population study concluded that avoiding the consumption of junk food and changing carnivorous eating habits in combination with improving sleep quality will improve androgenic alopecia, which is just another term for male pattern baldness. Genetics really are the biggest reason most men will experience male pattern baldness. So don't feel too bad. It's not your fault. It's actually how sensitive your hair follicles are to DHT. So how it kind of works is testosterone converts to DHT through an enzyme called alpha-5 reductase. And when DHT is high and our hair follicles are genetically predisposed to being sensitive to DHT, what happens is they start to shrink, the hair gets thinner and finer, and eventually that hair follicle will die and the hair falls out. Interestingly enough, while DHT does promote male pattern baldness, it also promotes facial hair growth. So if you're a male who's over 40 and you have a thick head of hair and a thick beard, you're probably not genetically predisposed for your hair follicles to be sensitive to DHT. But if your hair's thinning and you still have a pretty good beard, then you know that you have the genetics for male pattern baldness, unfortunately. And this is actually how the prescription medication finasteride or Propecia works. It stops that enzyme from converting so much testosterone into DHT. It wasn't really something that I wanted to do because that can come along with some nasty side effects such as lowered libido and sexual dysfunction. And for most people, it is just temporary, but sometimes it is permanent. And I figured, what good is having hair if some other stuff doesn't work? As I was reading about this, I also started to wonder if it isn't some environmental factors like our increased exposure to microplastics and BPAs that aren't causing an increase in hair loss in younger people. And it took a little bit of digging, but I did find an article that mentioned that microplastics could cause an increase in oxidative stress that might lead to hair loss. I also wonder if the increased use of pesticides and herbicides doesn't have something to do with it as well, but I wasn't able to find any information on that at all. And of course there is the creatine debate. So I do consume creatine. So this is something I've kind of kept my eye on over the years. I've been consuming it on and off for the last 6 or 7 years or so. And there was one study that came out that showed that creatine supplementation does increase DHT production in males. So it should be noted that they didn't find any hair loss in these males, but it was only a 3-week study that was done. So a few things that I did notice about the study was that, one, it's a fairly short-term study. Another was that they gave the participants 25 grams of creatine for the first week, and then 5 grams for the last 2 weeks. So 25 grams is like 5 to 8 times the standard 3 to 5 gram dose that most people take. And also, exercise itself can increase DHT production. There was also this recent scientific review that looked at over 500 creatine studies and stated that, in summary, the current body of evidence does not indicate that creatine supplementation increases total testosterone, free testosterone, DHT, or causes hair loss and baldness. But of course, if you're taking creatine and you feel like it might be causing some hair loss, well then just stop taking it. I don't think that's a worthwhile side effect to go through just for some extra muscles or recovery. So what can we do to keep our hair? So it doesn't look like I'm particularly qualified to be speaking on this topic, but I did do some research on this, and other than like the things I mentioned before, not smoking, not being too stressed out, getting good sleeping habits, making sure you're eating enough protein, that sort of stuff, there are actually a few specific things that we can be eating. So it's been attributed to hair growth in a number of studies. It seems that the phytoestrogens in them are able to bind to the DHT, not allowing it to affect the sensitive hair follicles. Pumpkin seed oil is another food that also seems to help with hair regrowth. This study gave men only 400 milligrams of pumpkin seed oil per day and found a mean hair count increase of 40%. The pictures from this study are pretty impressive, and that's just from only 1/16 of a teaspoon of pumpkin seed oil per day. Almost hard to believe. There are also some natural topical treatments that seem to work pretty well. So rosemary oil is definitely one of those. One randomized control trial showed that after 6 months, it actually had the same amount of regrowth as minoxidil, which is a pharmaceutical topical treatment. So the thing is, you have to be really consistent with both of these. In the trial, after 3 months, there was virtually no hair regrowth noted from either of the groups. But then at the 3 to 6 month mark was when they started to notice more hair regrowth. So I did try the whole rosemary oil thing on my hair, and I just wasn't consistent enough with it. It has to be accompanied by like massage, and you have to put it on like twice a day, and it just like didn't happen for me. And as far as minoxidil goes, again, it's kind of a pharmaceutical that can have some side effects. I just didn't really want to go down that route. I like to try and keep it as natural as possible around here. In my readings, I actually did find that there are some natural DHT inhibitors. So stinging nettle is one of them, and fenugreek seeds are another. There might be more as well, but those were kind of the two that came up for me. So I sleep well, I eat pumpkin seeds, I eat soy, I don't smoke, I'm not really that stressed out. So what the heck happened here? So what is the real reason why I shaved my head? Well, to be totally honest with you, I was never very happy with my hairline. Ever since I was a young kid, I had a pretty deep hairline. Like I had this like M-shaped hairline with pretty deep pockets, and I always had different hairstyles that sort of covered it up, whether it was sort of parted in the middle and went over the sides, or whether I kind of combed it forward. It was always something that I was self-conscious about. And then when I was in my late teens, I actually took some Accutane for some acne that I had, and I noticed that my hairline went back even further and my hair kind of thinned out and dried, and it never really recovered fully. Although the company said it's supposed to be a temporary side effect, it definitely wasn't for me. So I'm 40 now, and even though I tried a little bit, my hairline was not coming back, and I knew it wasn't gonna improve as I got older. And then I met this guy at the vegan campout when I was there in the UK just a couple of months ago, and he was a bald guy, and we got talking about like shaving our head and that sort of thing. I don't remember how it came up, but it did. And he said, hey, if I can give you some advice as a bald guy to someone who's kind of thinking about shaving their head and who's not happy with their hair anymore, he said, just do it. He's like, I guarantee you're gonna like it, and you can always grow it back if you don't. So as soon as I got home from the trip, with the support of my girlfriend Crystal, I said, let's do it. She said, yeah, I fully support you. Let's see how it looks. And so I just went at it in the bathroom. I grabbed my clippers and I just started to shave my head. And although it was a big step for me, you know, it's a lot for a guy to admit, hey, this might be time for me to shave my head. I definitely had some fun with it. You know, I shaved kind of like a funky little hairdo with it, got Crystal laughing and everything. And immediately I felt better. I felt like something that I had been holding on to for a long time that was no longer serving me anymore was finally gone. So someone else asked, how are you adjusting to the bald look? It suits you. Well, thank you so much for saying that. I appreciate it. And I've had a handful of people say that to me, and you have no idea how much some simple compliments like that can help somebody who's going through a transitional period like this. So of course I would rather like a luscious, thick, full head of hair, but you know, it's just not in the cards for me. So with all things considered, I am really happy with how things are going, and I think I'm adjusting okay. Like, I never wear my hat anymore, which I used to wear all the time because I was just not confident about my hairline. But one thing that I wasn't expecting is that it does take quite a bit of upkeep, and this is something that has taken some getting used to. So first of all, if I don't shave my head within like a day or 2 days, it becomes like Velcro and everything wants to stick to it, especially like lint from sweatshirts when I'm taking them off. And my t-shirts and other things just like stick to my head as I'm trying to take them off, which isn't a big deal, but it is kind of funny sometimes. So this means that I pretty much have to shave my head every day or every other day. And to do that, I went and bought this thing off of Amazon, and this is like specific for shaving your head. And it has actually been so good. It makes it really quick and easy, and it actually sucks up all the hair into the head of it so it doesn't go all over the bathroom. It gets it pretty close, not quite as close as a blade would, but it's pretty dang close, and I didn't really want to have to put shaving cream on every day and deal with like the nicks and maybe the ingrown hairs that I'd get from a blade. So I think this is a really good alternative. Someone else asked, how's your confidence been since shaving your head? And you know what? I definitely feel more confident, and this was not something that I was expecting. I feel much more confident, keep my head up a little higher, my chest higher, and it sort of just feels like, hey world, like this is me, I've got nothing to hide, here I am. And it's like really efficient as well. When I wake up in the morning and have a shower, it's like I'm just ready to go. There's no hair to worry about or hat to put on or anything like that. And I've also been swimming a few times now as well. And for anyone that has hair that they're not confident about, you know that is like the worst. Getting into water and then you don't really have any control about how your hair's looking once you get out. And for me now, I look the exact same when I get out as I did when I was going in. So of course I like to look my best, but really I'm out here only trying to impress one very important person to me. So as somebody asked, what does Crystal think about it? So Crystal, do you want to come talk about my bald head?
I do.
You do what?
Want to talk about it.
Oh, okay.
Because I really like it.
Nice.
First of all, it feels really cool.
It does feel pretty cool.
Every day, like today feels really smooth, but then it kind of feels like Velcro after.
That's what I was mentioning, how I get like fuzz stuck to it and everything. But yeah, so how do you feel dating a bald man now? You weren't before.
I didn't start dating you for your amazing good looks. That was one of the perks. But I love you because of who you are in here.
Thank you.
And I've noticed that your confidence has only grown because you're no longer like really worried about your hair. Although you were never like super worried, but
No.
it was like, it took up mental space.
Yeah, it did.
That you no longer have to worry about.
Yeah,
I've definitely noticed the difference. And so it makes me happy that you're so happy. And I think it looks great. Like, it looks so amazing.
Thank you.
I think it's my favorite haircut of all time that you've ever had.
Thank you, babe. I appreciate it. I appreciate your support. Like, you telling me that it looks good and just supporting me through it has been like really helpful in me kind of going through this transitional phase. And yeah, just like you said, it feels like it doesn't take up any mental space that it used to anymore. I'm just sort of like free to be able to like, you know, enjoy things and not worry about that until my next insecurity comes along. I know getting a hair transplant was an option as well, and it's becoming more popular for people to travel to different countries like Turkey who specialize in it to get that sort of thing done. But you know, if I'd shaved my head and absolutely hated how it looked, then maybe I would have considered that more, but it's really not an option that I want to go down. Like between the cost, you know, the travel, the time that it takes, and you know, any sort of surgery or medical procedure isn't without its risks. So that wasn't really something that I wanted to do. And also I got thinking, like if I did get some added to the front, and then the back starts to go, or it starts to go back like further, then what do? Do you have to like go back and get it kind of like touched up? I don't know. It just was like not something I wanted to have to think about. So as a final thought, if you are a guy out there who, like me, wasn't confident about your hair, you're getting a little bit older and you're thinking about shaving it, honestly, I would just try it. You have nothing to lose, well, I guess except for your hair, but you're losing it anyways. And if you want, you can always just grow it back. So honestly, give it a try. I bet you'll feel as liberated and free and happy as I do. I'm going to close this video with a quick quote that not only applies to this situation, but many others in life. And it's from Eckhart Tolle. Sometimes letting go is an act of far greater power than defending or holding on. Here's some other videos of mine that I think you might like. And if you're looking for some delicious and healthy plant-based recipes, check out my new recipe ebook, Easy Vegan Comfort Meals. It contains over 60 plant-based recipes, lots of delicious sauces that I know you're going to love. Thanks for watching, and thanks for the support.